Have you guys ever had a band or artist that you didn't really appreciate when you first came around to them, but throughout the years as you sort of expanded your repertoire of genres, artists, and bands, and maybe you went down the rabbit hole of the specific genre they found themselves in, you found a little bit more of an appreciation for them down the line? That's exactly what I'm going through right now with the band Animate. I'm a big fan of djent. I love progressive metalcore music. My favorite metalcore band is Era. I love bands like Veil of Maya, Born of Osiris, Vilsharta, Periphery, the list goes on and on. But throwing it back to when their name had a fucking comma in it, one of the first bands that I discovered during my early excursions into djent was Animate. And I don't think I found such an appreciation for a band so suddenly as one recently I've been diving into their discography again to potentially do a deep dive for, or to just do like a sort of discography tier list for like I do. And if you're someone that's maybe not a fan of a lot of very overproduced djent music that plays it by the numbers, is a little bit homogenous, or just not a fan of metalcore that builds up to the breakdown and nothing else like that video I made recently, and especially if you are a slut for atmosphere and music, Animate would be an incredible band to try out. I have been loving their discography recently. One of my favorite genres outside of metal is folk music, and another one is ambient music. I love to hear atmospheric soundscapes in metal. I think that when that clashes with heavy, I think it can make some of the best music in metal, especially when you're talking about a lot of atmospheric black metal and black and folk metal. And specifically, I think a lot of djent and progressive metalcore really try to hit the bullseye on atmosphere blending with heaviness, but just miss the mark just as much as they are able to hit that bullseye, if not more so. Sleepless Deathbed, Courier, Indigo, and Heavener are fantastic tracks if you want to give a little bit of a taste test into them. They approach the really heavily reverbed and washed out production style in a really tasteful way that sort of blends in ambient music into djent, and obviously post-metal and post-metal isms, post-rock isms aren't really too far-fetched when it comes to a lot of metalcore music and other progressive forms of metal, so djent, it's kind of like a sister genre in a way. It's not really so out of the ordinary to see these influences sort of come into the fold, but honestly, ambient music being injected into the formula in this way, I can honestly say as someone who has spent hundreds upon thousands of hours with this genre, I really don't think I have heard a single band that has successfully merged ambient music with djent and progressive metalcore quite as well as Animate's entire discography. It doesn't feel too phoned in, it doesn't feel like it's trying so hard to play to too much over compression, over equalization, too much reverb, but it is still some of the most crisp music that you'll hear in metalcore and djent when it comes to a production style, so being able to toe that line is incredibly impressive in my opinion. And I just think they've gotten it down to a T, making this music that is surprisingly accessible but still very brutal in the breakdowns, especially the vocals, some really nice mids, highs, and lows, a lot of diversity and versatility from a vocal department, riffs that are not too layered and so out there and progressive that you can't just sit down and enjoy it. Everything comes together in a really cohesive way, but it's still extremely nuanced and intelligent enough to be able to be dissected for the nerds and the prog fans that really do love going into their music not knowing what to expect and being able to sort of dissect everything and really see what's working to make it a project. And also, I love their logo, I love their album covers, I love their topic matters to kind of go hand in hand with their ambient influence and their progressive metalcore influence. They have this sort of existential dread to them, this existentialism. It all just feels like an existential crisis pretty much. The lyrics aren't necessarily the same sort of sappy stuff you'll get from a lot of stuff from metalcore music specifically, and it's not as philosophical as you might get from some other progressive metalcore bands like early Era. It's kind of in that middle ground where it is pretty sappy and it is pretty emotionally evocative, but it still has this sort of reign of poetry to it, with everything being constructed very meticulously and just making you question everything. It does feel like they're paying homage to this sort of naturistic tendency and formula that they have played with since the start, and it really is a thorough line throughout their entire discography where they have evolved without really compromising or sacrificing the first part of their discography at all, back before they got picked up by Tragic Hero Records and then they ended up being with UNFD now. They've taken a very Era sort of trajectory throughout their timeline. But yeah, I really think that if you don't particularly like a lot of djent and progressive metalcore, and especially if you like atmosphere and you want something that is not too off the beaten path but is still one of the best projects in djent and progressive metal, metalcore. My tune has changed pretty much completely on Invent Animate, and I highly suggest checking them out. And they're kind of one of those bands that are in that middle ground of being pretty popular and well-known in the djent and progressive metalcore scene, but not so popular that I hear them brought up a ton. So in a way, they're kind of a hidden gem to people that maybe don't know a ton of bands in the genre. So definitely check this out. If it's maybe not your cup of tea usually, this band might be. And especially if you have slept on them, please stop or go back and reevaluate. What are your guys' opinions of Invent Animate? You can let me know down in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear it. Agree or disagree, that's perfectly fine. Let's have a discussion, because there never is a wrong answer. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is, my name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.